You're tuned in to Career Currency with Kareem Perez, a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Here's your host, Kareem Perez.
Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of the Career Currency Podcast, the podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. We bring you the best marketers, influencers, brand builders in the game who share career advice on how to attract opportunities, make more money, and thrive in the digital economy. I'm your host, Kareem Perez, founder of The Tech Effect, professor, mentor, and marketing and communications professional. Today's guest, we got a big, long bio here because today's guest is a very, very special guest that we've been waiting to make this happen for a really long time. She's recognized as a change maker, speaker, and community builder, best known for her work empowering immigrants, international students, and young professionals in Canada and beyond. She's the founder of Redefine, a grassroots initiative that has supported over 50,000 immigrants through career-focused events, mentorship programs, and community building initiatives. She has also built a LinkedIn audience of over 116,000. She's a LinkedIn top voice, ranked among the top 20 female creators in Canada, and her content reaches over 10 million people across LinkedIn and Instagram per month. You got to check her out. She's very diverse, very dynamic, two-time TEDx speaker, over 75 talks globally. She's heavy into the event space. Welcome, Ritika Saraswat. How did I do?
Great.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thanks for coming through the podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. As you mentioned, I think it took us a while to make this happen. So I'm finally excited to meet your audience and see how this goes.
Okay, and why don't you start by telling me a little bit about your journey, how it started versus how it's going?
Absolutely. So I think it's quite a funny story because I think whenever people meet me now where I'm at, a lot of people don't imagine where it all started from, right? Because right now, obviously, I'm more in the business space, very entrepreneurial, doing influencing, marketing. So everyone's first reaction is, oh, you probably come from a business background because, you're selling yourself,
Right.
putting yourself out there. But my background is obviously very, very different. I think, I first, when I wanted to, ever since I was young, my mom has always spoken to me this idea about, she was one of those unique people, who never cared about how many grades do you get, are you top of class or not? But what she cared about is, are you a good human at the end of the day? And that's in stark contrast to my dad, who's a very money person. And he's be the first in class, do this and that.
Right.
So I kind of grew up with both values in many ways, I think, which reflects in the kind of work that I do even today. And it also reflected early on in my journey where my whole idea was just around, okay, how do I help people around me? That's all I cared about, right? Whether it was, and that's why initially I thought I wanted to be a doctor because that was the only way I saw I was able to help people, right? I was like, wow, a doctor is so amazing. They are literally like gods because they give you life. And, I came to Canada as well to pursue that because I came here for kinesiology.
Okay, for real.
Yeah. So pre-med in a way, preparing to pursue medicine eventually.
Right.
And I wasn't scared by the fact, you have to study for another 12 years or so. I was super excited. But then while I was in the journey, I've never been someone who holds myself back from trying different things. So, my friends were from business backgrounds and they used to go for these case competitions and these other things while most of my other counterparts in my program were all just about studying and going from one class to the other and, all of that. So I decided to go attend case competitions with them. And I happened to be, most of times, the only science kid who was there. And people used to give you that weird look where they're like, how are you here? This is only for the business folks, right?
Right.
So that became frequent occurrence then. And over time, then I started in a way building visibility with people around there. And I got to be known as the science kid who's good at business in a way. And that led me and my friends end up winning the first case competition we went for. And when that happened, I was like, wow, that was a super cool experience. I want to do more of this. So I went on to do more and more, started doing really well, started building a lot of connections. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. What is this? What is this called? And then I started talking to more professionals and they were like, hey, it's called consulting actually.
Okay.
I was like, okay.
Right,
So
right.
problem solving, talking to clients, that's all consulting. So I started exploring consulting at that point. And obviously, when I went down that route, that was a whole another challenge that came up because, I had this perception as this science kid, right? So when I was approaching different partners or leaders in the consulting space, I remember a lot of them shutting down the conversation on me to even say, like, you don't have a future in consulting because you clearly come from a science background.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they were like, how do you even expect, to come in here and you're wasting my time? And as someone who did not know about coffee chatting, as someone who wasn't well, aware of networking at that time,
Right.
that was quite a setback in a way in that moment at least, because it was my first time hopping on a call, with someone telling them that, hey, I want to pursue a career in the space that you're in. And I was super excited. And someone just telling you in the first call, you know what? Shut your laptop, go back, finish your studies and continue doing what you're doing. Right? Don't hope to change, right? Kind of a thing. So I think that was like a big shocker. And I feel like that's something been consistent in my journey, where in certain ways or not, there always been have those setbacks that have come in. So when I came to Canada as an international student, that in itself was a setback, where when you started applying to opportunities, people were like, oh, do you have Canadian experience?
Right.
And I did not have that, so that never went through. Then when I tried to get into specifically consulting roles, people were like, oh, you come from a science background, you don't fit in, right? So again, it was that thing of like, no, right? Not allowed. And so I think overall, my main kind of takeaway from that was, and because this entire time I was still working at a pizza place as a server,
Right.
while I was in university to pay for my tuition fee and support my parents back home, because international fee is expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
And while I was doing that, I was trying to explore all these different things and nothing was seeming to work. And when I'd first come in, people had told me, like in Canada for immigrants, there's a 3-step method to success. And the idea was you get a part-time job, you get your PR, and then you figure out life. And so I, in a way, went along following that exact same playbook because I didn't know otherwise at that point, right? That's what people around me who looked like me told me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to follow you. And I started doing that, but nothing seemed to work still, right? Apparently, the playbook seemed to be faulty, right? So I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now. But because of those competitions, because of me just trying different things, and because I started meeting more people, expanding my network, I got more perspectives. More perspectives enabled me to sit down, look at every piece of information I got in and think about, okay, how does this apply to my current journey, right? Which then pushed me to really start tapping into my potential. Okay, what's my why, right? I started having those deeper conversations, which I think allowed me to gain more clarity on what do I really want to do, which I think a lot of students don't put the effort into getting.
Right.
And when that clarity came through, I think that's when it became really clear how to get there. And with all of that process happening, I think just within a period of 4 months, I ended up getting a job at 4 different consulting firms, negotiated my salaries, sent an email back to that partner at the firm who said, you can never get a job here.
Oh, really? You had to
And I sent
remind
them
them?
my offer letter with my salary as well. I just wanted to let them know that, it is possible, so that you don't discourage someone. And when I made that happen, I was like, okay, how about we make this happen for others? So that's how Redefine also started.
Okay. Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're in for a big convo right now. So you mentioned kinesiology.
Yes.
So where did that come from? Like, did you play sports? Were you into sports? Were you into like the body? Like, how did you?
So the answer is going to sound very not informed and educated of a decision. So basically, when I was about to finish my 12th grade in India, my parents were like, you should go abroad. Because, when I was back home, I was a very nervous and shy kid. Like, I used to be one of those people who would run away and hide behind someone when I'm in a public setting. Okay. And public speaking was not my cup of tea.
Okay, right.
So they just felt like I needed my own space. So they said, we're going to send you abroad. I was like, okay, cool. I'll go there, whatever. And they were like, but figure out where you want to go. So what I did was I opened Google. Right? At that time, ChatGPT wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So I opened Google and I was like, okay, best place to study abroad. Canada was the first one. I was like, great, we're going to Canada. So then within Canada, I searched, okay, best city in Canada. So it said Vancouver. I said, amazing. And then I searched best universities in Vancouver to study like pre-med. Like I knew I wanted to become a doctor, but I didn't know what kind of a degree to be a doctor. So it said, kinesiology is something you could do to build up to a doctorate later on. I was like, perfect. And UBC was the first on the list. So me at that point, being the person I was, I only applied to UBC, for kinesiology.
Interesting.
I would never recommend anyone to do that, but that's what I did. And I just applied to one university and thankfully got in. And that's how kinesiology happened.
So you basically reverse engineered
Yes.
the whole process and like just went for it. That's amazing. Just put your mic a little closer. Pull it towards you. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so you mentioned Canadian experience.
Yes.
Right? And I want to talk about the career side of building your career and the concept of a non-traditional background.
Yeah.
Right? So what does that mean? Does that even matter, like, to have that traditional experience in terms of going to school, graduating, and then starting your career? Because like you said, these business competitions really what put you on the path of consulting.
So which one do you want me to address first? The Canadian experience piece one or the other
The
one?
non-traditional background.
The non-traditional
Yeah.
background. So I think, that's a very big one. And I think when I first started on LinkedIn as well, my first year on LinkedIn, my entire brand was actually more about that. More than even the immigrant piece, it was actually about how do students from non-traditional backgrounds
Okay.
get into, other roles,
Right.
basically. And I think the biggest takeaway, I mean, a lot of things have changed over the last 4 years. Like I've been in Canada 7 years, and a lot of the experiences I had where it was quite limiting was, I think, in the about 3 years ago. So since 3 years ago, a lot of public perception and employer perception has changed about how much they care about that traditional experience
Right.
or that traditional educational background. And also, I mean, which university you come from also, all of that also matters. But just keeping it to where you said, I think at that point, it was more about, if you graduate with a degree in science, you go on to pursue a career in science, right? If you graduate with a degree in business, you go on to do something in business. It was very less that you had students from one type of career go into the other, because even at
Right.
UBC, which is one of the biggest institutions in Canada and one of the top institutions, even there, when you get to take extra credits or extra courses outside of your typical degree.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So most students would never take courses in business or anything else. So I used to, again, be one of the only science kids sitting in business classes for those extra credits, right?
Right.
So I think that in itself at that time was something that helped me. Today, however, I think things have changed because employers are becoming more aware that it doesn't really matter what background you come from, because at the end of the day, what people care about, and there's this framework also that I have, which I think is what came up through my multiple conversations and those experiences I had, which is like the PCB framework that I constantly talk about everywhere, which is like purpose, credibility, and visibility. Every employer just cares about that, as long as you have those three things to offer. And one thing I understood at that point by talking to a lot of employers is what they care about is not necessarily, hey, did you graduate in business? But what they cared about is, if I'm to give you a job today, can you come in and do the work that I'm asking you to do and give me examples that you have done it for someone else and you've done it well for someone else, so that I know if I'm to invest, let's say, $70,000 in you, I know I can reap a good ROI from you because you have done this before and you have some sort of metrics to showcase that. So what I started doing was, to be able to bridge some of that gap, I was like, I'm going to keep continuing with my science degree. But what
Right.
I'm going to do in the meanwhile is get internships with startups or even non-for-profits, building the core consulting skill sets, which was a lot around problem solving, a lot around even a part of sales, to be honest, like communication, etc. So I started reaching out to literally cold calling and cold messaging multiple internships, multiple startups, non-for-profits, and I told them, hey, I have zero experience in this space. I'll work for you free of cost for 2 months. And I did this in the marketing space. I did this in a very typical research space as well for them. All that allowed me to build those core skill sets. And I did like that 4 internships, basically,
Okay.
over 2 months each, 2 to 3 months each. So I had now had my resume racked up with
Nice,
relevant
yeah.
experiences while I was just in my second year of university. So anyone I was talking to, they were like, wow, that's impressive, right? And it wasn't just a project that I did. I actually had real-time data to show that, hey, I took my client from X to X numbers in X period of time by leveraging XYZ strategies. And they were like, yeah, that's consulting. So I think a part of
Right.
it was knowing how to bridge the gap and understanding what truly employers are looking for. And I think the second part to it was also being able to understand how to explain it to employers in a way that makes sense to them, right? A lot of employers, when they have the conversation with you, when you just tell them, oh, and I tell this tip to every international student or any student, is if you just go in there and tell them, oh, I have a degree in kinesiology, no one's going to hire you on the spot because they're turned off by the fact that you mentioned kinesiology. It triggers perceptions in their head that you're not a good fit. But when I started going into conversations, I started talking about more about the core skills I have, less about the educational background I had.
Okay.
And when I even described my kinesiology experiences when I was working at the gym, for example, as a personal trainer, I described it from a consulting standpoint. So I was like, oh, I've worked with clients, except it's in a gym setting. I've helped them accomplish their goals within X period of time by being individualized in my approach, right? Making sure I'm doing my research ahead of time, making sure I have touch points with my client, right? Making sure they're satisfied. Exactly similar to consulting. So people went like, oh my God, yes, that's consulting. I was like, exactly my point.
Yeah.
So they were like, yes, you're a good fit then. So that's how it happened.
Nice. Yeah, I really like what you said about the framework and also building your experience to bridge the gap in terms of your knowledge and your skill set and your resume. So, I mean, that sounds really good, but there must have been some no's along the way and some rejections.
Yeah.
So can you talk about like how you overcame certain rejections or pushed past, you said you had this professor or somebody consultant that said you can't do it.
Yeah.
So how do you push past rejection, and what kind of advice do you have for people getting no's from companies, not getting callbacks from after interviews, things like that?
Yeah. I think we all may have heard of this phrase quite a lot, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself here, but rejection is redirection. I think a lot of people talk about it that way, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I realized quite early on, and my mom is my biggest influencer in my life, to be honest. So whenever I have those breaking points or moments, I think she's the first person I go to. And I think obviously in that moment when you get rejected, and in that case, it was more of that verbal rejection, I think it impacts you a lot more. It's easier for me to be sitting here and saying, oh, don't let it get to you, right? But it does get to you. And it did get to me then as well. Like as soon as they cut off the call, which was in a very rude way as well, it just made me think that I'm worthless in many ways. And I remember just bawling my eyes out right after the call and thinking like, oh my God, this is the end. Nothing's going to happen. My consulting career is gone or whatever. And all of those crazy thoughts, the world is ending, comes in your mind.
Right.
But then I took a moment to I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, okay, let's take a deep breath and let's think about this. And one thing, I don't know who I read this from. Maybe it was Alex Hormozy or someone. But there was this idea I'd heard of at that point where in that moment, think of yourself 30 years from now. Okay. And when you think of yourself 30 years from now, ask the person 30 years from now, how much would this moment matter, right? Does this moment influence who you go on to become? And when I put myself in that headspace, I was like, you know what? No, it doesn't matter. It's just one no. I've got so many yeses all my life, right? So it made me realize, oh my God, this is such an insignificant part of who I am going to become.
Right.
So why am I letting this dictate my entire perception of myself and my capabilities? And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove this person wrong. And I used that aggression and frustration in a way as a fire to make me just get up every single day, put in the work that was needed to be done to get where I needed to be, right? And that's when all of that came up. Like I started looking outside of the box and I was like, you know what? Done with following the playbook people have written for me. Let's look outside of the box. Let's start talking to people. And that's how all that redefining piece came in. So anytime it happens, and I'm happy that happened, because if I look back now, I don't think if that moment didn't happen, I wouldn't have realized how much I wanted to be in consulting. And because I strive to get into consulting, because I did all of those experiences, that eventually helps me today build my own company as well. And that also helped me build partnerships at that time that I'm being able to reap benefits of today. So that made me realize, wow, that was actually such a key moment in my life, which helped me for the better. If that moment didn't happen, I don't think I would be where I am today. Right. And there's this idea that my mom always tells me is when you have like that rejection come through, just know that that's God's way of guiding you on another side so that you don't have to face something even worse. Right. That's how she thinks of it as. And I've started adopting that in life. So I'm like, you know what? This is such a small thing. Maybe I was saved from a bigger loss. Right. Or something like that.
Right.
So that's how I think
or going down the wrong path or doing something you wouldn't want to do later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so I know you work with a lot of students, and you said visibility earlier, right? So what's like one practical strategy students can use to get seen when they're trying to build their career, they're trying to get recognized by companies that are hiring, especially with all the automation in terms of like automated ATS systems and things like that?
I would say like that's where human connection comes in, right?
Okay.
I think it speaks, I think like while AI with everything coming in, people are like, yes, oh my God, innovation, everything's about tech, and absolutely it is.
Right.
But I think a big part of it is where it creates space is also human interaction has become even more important, because that's something AI, at least what I think, and when I've had not had conversations, I touch wood one day, but when I've seen podcasts of like, Sam Altman or the others who are big in the AI space talk about it, they're like, human interaction is one thing AI cannot replace.
Right.
And even when you think from an employer or a company standpoint, that's one thing we're valuing even more. Even at Deloitte, when I'm working in the Gen AI space, a lot of the conversation is about how do we double down on our human potential now while being AI enabled, right? So I think the same thing comes for students is to recognize, yes, while things are getting more innovative, while everything's becoming online, your connection to someone, the kind of relationship you build, that's intangible. Right? And that's why it becomes so much more important to network and build those long-term relationships today, right? But before even visibility, I think I want to like just put a pointer here that it's important that students first have clarity on what do they really even want to do. Because let's say if you even create visibility, right? You just become someone who's fluff if people end up hopping on that call with you and realize there's no substance there, right? Because you lack clarity, you don't know where you're headed, you're not even sure why you're even applying to that company. And maybe that company is one of the 100 companies on your list to apply for. And you're applying there just to increase your chances. Why would any employer want to hire a person like that? Right? So I think before even wanting to build visibility, first understand what do you want to be visible for, right? What do you want to be known for? That's important.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah.
But what do you say when they say, well, I don't know?
So we figure it out. So my first question would be, what have you done to figure it out?
Okay. And okay, so that's good. So then when people come to you or you meet people and they're looking for opportunity, do you feel like they've done the work to put themselves in a position to get opportunities, or do you feel they're looking for more of a handout per se, or somebody to just give them the opportunity versus having to work for it?
So I think it comes down to our sense as humans in itself. As humans, we are more wired towards pleasure. What I mean by that is, we're wired to do things that we want to do in that moment. So when it even comes to chasing a goal or an opportunity, we're wired to work hard in a way that sits right with us or that makes us still comfortable, if that is making sense.
Yeah, that
right?
makes sense. Yeah.
So even for job search, for example, most students will work very hard. They're putting in 12 hours a day, but what are they doing? They're sitting on their laptop, submitting application after application, right?
Yeah.
Sending out hundreds of applications every single day. That is a lot of work. Drafting a cover letter, resume, it's like it drains the energy out of you. So they're putting in the work, but they're putting it in a way that comes easy to them, right? So I think even for them, because they are putting in that work and then they're not getting the ROI, obviously, because every other person is doing the exact same thing, it leaves them in a position where they don't know what else to do. And when you are put in that kind of a tight spot, you now start becoming, you start throwing yourself at people in the sense that you just like, okay, just give me something.
Like a little desperate.
In a way, exactly. Yeah. You come across desperate. You'll see like, a lot of students will start messaging professionals. Hey, I need to apply for the job. Can you give me a referral? That's how that comes through. If you ask any of the students, do you actually want to adopt that approach? They would say, no, I would not want to, but I've tried everything else. But for them, that idea of everything else hasn't been defined or guided in the right direction. So they think their everything else was sending out all those applications. So they're like, oh, I sent out 500 applications. I did my job, but I'm still not hearing back. So it's probably my fault. And it's probably because there's something I lack. And now out of desperation, the only thing I can do is just ask people to, give me that referral, thinking again that may change my life. But that again won't, because every other person is trying to do the same thing. So how are you really differentiating yourself from the market, right? Which leaves them again further for self-doubt, further lowers their confidence, and in return, the person comes at a state where now the next interview that they attend, they are now there just wanting to get the job, no matter what kind of a role it is, what kind of a pay it is.
Right.
And that is something an employer can definitely see. And that's what eventually leads to exploitation, which is why a lot of like immigrants specifically are more prone to exploitation because of not just the immigration status limitations, but also that desperation that they reach to because of adopting, not I would say wrong practices, but the overused practices and not innovating how you're approaching employers today, which I think leads them to that state, further creating a decline for themselves.
Yeah. So what's like one innovative way to stand out?
I don't know if this is even innovative anymore.
Okay.
But I think 2 years ago, because I think until 3 years ago, I would say everyone was like resume, cover letter, like very heavy. Like when I was applying to jobs, resume, cover letter was the main thing that people were looking for. And there were a few people who had started networking at that point, right?
Okay.
It wasn't as big of a thing. But then in the last 2 years, networking became this whole big thing and everyone started doing it. Now, when everyone starts doing everything, it's no longer innovative and cool.
I like that, yeah.
So then what happened is resume, cover letter, and networking all became the basics. So now then came a new concept about 2 years ago, personal branding, right? Everyone started talking about it. Okay, create your own brand, blah, blah, blah. Even I started talking about it. And that was the cool, innovative thing at that point where people who had that strong brand stand out compared to others. But now more and more people have started building those brands, right? So now that piece itself is becoming less and less innovative or like a differentiator. Obviously, it still comes down to the quality of your brand and how consistent is your brand, right? Across online, in person, and when you show up for that interview, right? Is that telling a consistent story, right? But if it has gaps, there is fluff involved, right? So I think like that now I think is dying out of innovation. So maybe there's something new that's going to come in, right? I don't know what that is yet, right?
Okay.
But I think now it just feels to me when I talk to a lot of employers or recruiters, it just comes down to the quality of each of those pieces. So the quality of your brand. It is not just about the number of years of experience you have. I want to know about the quality of your experience, right? What was the impact you've created for your previous employers? Tell me about that, right? Someone has a 10% increase that they did versus someone has a 95% increase. Great, I want the 95% increase person, right? So I think at this state, because everything has become like, in a way, like the non-negotiables, people are now more focused on the quality within each of those factors. And then obviously with AI and everything coming into the picture as well, most companies are now pushing themselves to hire people who they know are in a capacity to future-proof themselves. So that also goes back to the question of who are the people who through their experiences have been able to showcase that they can adapt quickly, right? Who are the people that have been able to show that they can learn, right, quicker, and they are not like tied to their own things? Who are people who can work as a team but also individually, right? So those factors are now being used in a way to dictate who are people who they even see lasting long term, because no employer wants to hire someone for a job that they believe is going to last only for the next 5 years. They want to bring in someone who they believe as soon as the job changes, they can change and be repositioned to another opportunity within the company, so that they don't lose talent, because hiring takes money out of a company. No one wants to do that anymore, which is why hiring is so limited at the moment, because they are like, you know what, already with the constraints we have because of how the market has been, which has been quite down for a lot of companies recently, they're like, let us save money by just keeping the people we have and repositioning them across the firm. Just in the last year, a lot of people have actually moved roles within their own companies across, which I think a lot of people don't talk about. And that's happened because of companies wanting to save money on hiring and making sure they don't lose out on the right talent and keeping them engaged as well, right?
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned future proofing.
Yeah.
Do you think that leveraging AI is helping or hurting for candidates that are looking for opportunities?
For hiring, you mean?
Yeah. So like I'm using ChatGPT, or I'm using AI to help me with my resume, help me generate my interview answers, like. Because again, there you can fall into the trap of sounding like AI versus the human side.
Yeah.
So do you think that helps or hurts, or how do you think that should be approached?
Like whether students should use AI tools?
Yeah, or how they should use it effectively.
How they should use it effectively, yeah. So I think I can't stop them from using it. I know they're already going to use it, right? I use ChatGPT quite a lot myself, especially for emails and other things, wherever you can automate. I would say, again, it's all about, goes back to like being smart about the entire process. I think using ChatGPT as a friend to brainstorm ideas with and go back and forth with is a great idea. Right? Like, especially today, like there are a lot of people who may not have as close friends or may not always have mentors or certain professionals accessible to them, right?
Yeah.
So asking GPT to act as a professional, let's say who is a consultant at Deloitte in a company, and respond or give you answers. One of the things I've done is I'll ask ChatGPT to, like, as a way, embody the persona of a particular individual.
Okay.
In my case, let's say if it's like a partnership or a sponsorship thing I'm drafting, right? I'll tell them, assume you are this company who I'm going to apply to for sponsorship, right? This is the email I'm drafting. What do you think is missing, right? How do you think we can make this more effective? So that's one way in which I would recommend students to try things out or prep for their interviews as well, using ChatGPT as if that interviewer, and draft the questions or like use the audio version of it, right? And speak out your answers, put it in and ask it, how do you think I did on a scale of 1 to 10, right? What would you change about my response? If you are a recruiter today hiring me for a job that pays me X amount, do you think my metrics and other things I've shared, right, give you a good incentive on why I should be hired, right? So I would just go about using it more from that perspective rather than telling it, hey, draft my answers for me, right? Or here is my questions. I would use it more creatively like that.
Okay. So rather than using it to do things for you, you use it to prep you and kind of prepare you and analyze what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a better way to do it because that's where the gap is, right? Most people don't have mentors or the right people accessible to them to give them the right guidance and the input. So one of the things you could also do is to frame that persona. You can find recruiters of that company from LinkedIn or whatever, and you can feed it to ChatGPT to be like, hey, read through their LinkedIn profiles or whatever and assume that role, right? And this is what the job posting says, right? Equip yourself with that information and now tell me what I should be doing, kind of a thing. So I feel like, you're still getting it to help you out, but it's less about just write the answer for me and not individualizing ChatGPT to the context and everything. Because what I've realized with ChatGPT is like the more you feed it with information and you form a guardrail around it of the information so that it's not just getting info for you from anywhere on the internet, but you tell it specific sources to get you the information from, or you tell it to specifically refer to certain documents you lay out for them, right? Or if you do like a word dump, right, while just talking about an answer, feed it the entire thing and tell it, then create a response around that, so that you are still the initiator of the information and you're leveraging ChatGPT's help to just finesse the responses and analyze it for effectiveness.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. Do you have a mentor?
Yes, multiple.
When you started off, did you have one?
No. I think I had multiple people in my life who you could call as mentors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And talk about what has mentorship done for you. How has it helped you throughout your career? Especially, I'm assuming these are people, not bots or ChatGPT.
No, they're not bots. Yes.
So again, maybe that human connection, that mentorship, how has it helped you and how important is that?
I think it's one of the most important things beyond anything else. Like, I think if I could today, I think if anything else, like I could even believe that your entire degree could be replaced by mentorship. To be quite honest.
Okay, I like that.
Getting to learn from the right people.
Right.
Like that is so important. Like a lot of the work that Simon Squibb and I forgot this other guy, he has the knockout hard school, something he calls it, where he interviews
School of Hard Knocks?
Yes, the School of Hard Knocks. Yeah. And he'll interview like these millionaires, right?
Right.
The pieces of advice you get from there, I think is equivalent to like 4-year degrees people do in business schools, right? So I feel like that's the role that a mentor can play in your life. And obviously there are different levels or tiers of mentorship as well. You have sponsors, you have mentors, both a peer mentor, but I think also like a mentor. Like that's how I like to think of it.
Like a formal kind of mentor, yeah.
Yeah, like a mentor who's maybe a few years ahead of you, that I would say, right? And that's what I try to see in my life as well, is like, again, for me, I have 3 areas of my life. Like one is the influencing side of things, one is the Deloitte side of things, and then I have the redefine side of things.
Okay.
So in each of those, I will have like a mentor who can guide me in each of those areas. And that mentor for me will potentially be someone who's built something like that or has built credibility in that space in their own lives, right? And someone I look up to. So that potentially will become my mentor. But then I also try and find a sponsor in each of those areas. And that sponsor would essentially be someone who is maybe even 10 to 20 years ahead of where I am today.
Okay.
And in a capacity where they have a plethora of resources accessible, which they would be invested in investing in you, whether that's in terms of their time, whether that's in terms of their connections and opening those doors for you, or whether it's in terms of actual resources and funding provision for certain things that you're doing, right? Because they're invested in your values, because they're invested in what you're building. I think finding that kind of a person is also very important. And that usually, I think, becomes more important later stages of your life. I mean, by later stages of your career, rather. And I think the third piece is then a peer mentor. So this could literally be someone who is your same age, right? Maybe in another part of the world or in the same part of the world, but just doing things that make you look up to them, right? And you aspire to embody certain values and characteristics, not necessarily always wanting to be where they are, kind of a thing. Right? So I would say like those three are the kind of areas that I really focus on from a mentorship standpoint. And I think it's been life-changing, honestly. I think finding the right people, because the kind of doors they will open for you, and that again happens only once you've built that long-term relationship. It's not that today you go into have that conversation and it's going to be all figured out. It's mostly those sponsors who are opening those doors. Mentors also usually do that, but I think mentors are more for when I'm confused between left or right. I'm going to them for more the guidance. I'm going to the sponsor when I'm not able to open a door and tell them, hey, do you know someone who can help me help me out there? Or hey, can you be someone who gives that credibility stamp that yes, I support her, right? Whether it's through a post, whether it's through in an email or whatever that is.
Right.
And I think the peer mentor is more from the sense of how do I manage the above two, right? It's also for that support. Because when you're managing people, you know, who are at different levels of their career, you have to be very careful as well. That's one thing I've learned. I have been very bad with email communication in the past.
Okay.
You know, like being delayed a little bit, or, you know, like before you have a meeting with them, not sending an agenda outline of what you're going to talk about.
Right.
It makes a big difference to them, because these are people like, you know, who are those millionaires or whatever. Their time is precious. So you better act like you're treating their time preciously. And if you don't, that can come across disrespectfully, even if you don't mean it.
Right.
So that's something I've learned. The more top people you go to, then you have to start becoming more and more careful to even be deserving of their time, right? So I think it also makes you more accountable in many ways to keep, you know, creating value and ROI, so that when you go in, you can actually show progress.
Right.
Because I'm scared to go into that call without having shown anything otherwise, you know?
Yeah. Okay, and then what are some of the skills, like if you were starting off, what are some of the like more transferable skills that you would highlight in order to get jobs, get opportunities? You mentioned communication, for example. What are some of the other skills? You even mentioned public speaking. Like you started off, you didn't, you know, you were like a fear of public speaking, but now I'm sure being a confident speaker gets you opportunities that
100%.
others don't.
Yeah.
So what are some of those like transferable skills, or like those skills that would help to future proof, or not necessarily again future proof from the careers perspective, but just life in general? Like anywhere you go, you can bring these skills and you'll add value in whatever situation you're in.
Sales.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
I think that's the number one thing today.
Love that.
You know, whether you get a job, whether you get into entrepreneurship, whether you're getting into content creation, every single thing today is sales. If you have sales, you have a business. If you can sell, you will have a job. If you can sell, you will have great following. And if you can sell, you will have great mentors, sponsors, and everything. Because everything today, if you think, networking is sales, right? Coffee chatting is sales. Interview is sales. I mean, it's hardcore sales, obviously, and you are the product in that case, right?
Yeah.
So I think just learning how to sell yourself, I think today is one of the biggest skill sets, which I even recommend every student to do. Like even when I was in university, the conversation in my head was always about, okay, irrespective of who I have to go to today, what's my selling point? And that's why the conversation about your brand becomes important, right? Being able to sell requires the prerequisites of you knowing what your purpose is. It requires the prerequisite of you having built credibility for that purpose. And it requires the prerequisite of you even knowing what your brand is about. I think those three things need to be satisfied for you to be able to sell confidently. Because if you don't believe in your product, which is yourself at the end of the day, and your lack of belief in your product comes from lack of proof. And that's where credibility comes in. If you haven't had enough experiences or tried different things to even know what you like doing and not done what you like doing enough times to be able to have proof that I can do it well, you're never going to have the confidence enough in yourself. And as a result, you're never going to be able to sell yourself and never get the opportunities you truly deserve. And then you're going to find yourself getting satisfied with what just lays left there. Right? So I think that's most important.
Amazing. Really, really good advice. So yeah, sales. Okay, so Redefined.
Yes.
Right? What inspired you to create it and how did you scale it? You have over 30,000 people now.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about how did you start it? What exactly is it? And how did you scale it?
So I think we started about 2.5 years ago. And I think it was when I was in my 4th year. No, that seems like a while ago. Yeah, it basically started when I was in my 4th year of university was when the idea came up. And it came up because of my own experience. And, when I went through that period where I went from someone who had nothing around me, was following the playbook, to then becoming someone who created a new path for herself, got all these opportunities, and it left me in a position where I was kind of surprised and shocked at that moment initially, because first of all, I didn't have much confidence at that time. So I was surprised I even got what I got, like in terms of opportunities. And when I did, it made me think, oh my God, there are so many incredible people around me who have X years of experience from back home, right? But they are working at these pizza places or as these taxi drivers. Right. Why aren't they doing what I did? Right? In fact, they are more deserving of those opportunities than I was at that point. That's something it was very clear in my head. I was like, if today they stand against me and if they bring the confidence, I bet, in fact, they should get the job, right? But they weren't.
Right.
So that made me realize that there's probably some gap in the system why that's not happening. I mean, and a big reason is a lot of the support today available in Canada overall is mostly for PR and above. Right? Because of, again, like the government funding structures and how things work in place, which makes sense from their perspective also. But as a result, international students tend to fall through the cracks. And by that, I mean there's lack of individualized support for them. So institutions do provide that support, but because of how big institutions are and generally how students at that age are framed, they're less likely to go to their institution hubs for support. Right. They're most likely to go to certain other clubs or maybe go to certain other friends for that guidance, right? Or even being immigrants, they're most likely to even approach settlement agencies to see if they can get support. But they are more like settlement agencies and we are more nuanced in taking care of immigrant professionals and above. So students never again find that guidance that's relevant to them and that sticks with them. Leaving them in the middle just floating around, trying to get guidance from any person around them at that point, which may be right, may not be right.
Right.
So I think that's what ends up happening for a lot of people. So I realized that. So I was like, okay, you know what? And I saw that there were a lot of companies that were job platforms. There were a lot of companies that were immigration platforms. And there were companies who were just doing one-on-one career coaching. But there was no one who was bringing all of them together. Like, as a house or a family.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Let's start with a community first, where we at least bring everyone together who is like each other in terms of shared experiences, and let's at least start there, right? So that we can at least bond and connect with one another over those lived experiences and have a friend to talk to. I think that matters most at the end of the day, right? So that on a Friday night, while there are other people like going to parties, etc., you could at least have a friend who you could go play basketball with, right? Instead of just sitting by yourself and not knowing what to do and missing home, etc. So the idea was just started with something as simple as that. And then it transferred to this idea where I started even coaching students one-on-one. But again, my goal always was, okay, I don't always want to be the face of it, right? I don't want to be the only person you come to and you're waiting in line until your turn comes or whatever. Right. How do I bring in people like myself who are similar values, similar passion for the space, want to help students go above and beyond for them and just bring them together again? Right? So I started then going towards building a platform and a community where we were now providing career coaching to students as well through WhatsApp groups. So instead of on calls, it was the idea, okay, a student asks a question on the group, we respond to them immediately. So it was reducing the gap between students getting the right guidance from someone and waiting on LinkedIn for someone to accept their coffee chat request. Right? So now it's more immediate. So that's what we started with. And then it started scaling to, okay, now how about we build a marketplace in a way as well of the right partners and service providers who we can create access to for our students. Because I realized I'm not expert for everything, right? We don't even want to claim to be experts. So how do we find the right partner in finance industry, in housing, right? Or someone who's offering, I don't know, specifically product management courses, which we don't offer. How do we find those right people and drive traffic to them? And as a result, it becomes a win for us through referrals and other things. It becomes a win for students because they get something at a subsidized rate through us. It becomes a win for that company because they're getting automatic traffic towards themselves without having to invest thousands of dollars in influencer marketing. So it's a win-win for all. So I think that's how it started and that's how it's been scaling. And now we started our paid membership program as well, where students just pay us $10 to $12 a month to access multiple benefits across the platform.
Nice. And what's the most rewarding part of that work? You're a leader, you're a community builder.
Yeah.
What's the most rewarding part?
I think seeing smiles on students' faces.
Okay.
I think that's the best thing. Like it's crazy. Like I was talking to my mom that day, and it's funny. Like, there are moments where I've questioned if this is what drives me. But then when I started looking back to my journey, I realized, this really drives me. And I don't know for what reason, to be honest. Like if you were to ask me to pinpoint a reason, I can't. Because there have been so many times I've given up job offers. I've given up a job that was thrice Deloitte's pay and everything. But their only condition was I have to give up Redefined.
You said thrice?
Yes.
Okay.
And the only condition was I have to give up Redefined. And I said no immediately. And I don't know where that came from. And I remember when I gave that response and I came home, I was like, am I stupid? Am I crazy? Why did I say no to that? And I was telling my mom, oh my God, I made the mistake of my life. I said no to this big opportunity. Maybe I should just go back and say yes or whatever.
Right.
She was like, why do you think you said no? I said, I don't know. It just came instinctively, right? As soon as they said no, Redefined, I was like, no, that can't happen, right? And I think a part of it was because I feel like I have it in me somewhere that it says this is going to be something a lot bigger than it is today, right? So I was like, you know what? Let's hold it out for the long term, right? Let's not give in to the short term. We'll wait. I know it'll become something. So I think it's that belief that keeps me going at it.
Right.
And I think what also keeps me going is I just feel a sense of accountability towards students. I don't know why. It feels like as if something's not right with them, it's not my fault, but it's like I have to do something about it. And just recently when we had our events, I met so many students who will come to us and say, hey, I either got that job or, someone will say, I found my best friends through your organization. We recently had someone who got married through our organization.
Okay, amazing.
So I had this, so someone was proposing this idea, why don't you organize a singles networking event? And I was like, guys, that's not our focus. But that's what you're starting to see now. And then even today, as I mentioned to you, while I was coming here, I bumped into a community member and they spoke about, the content and the work that we're doing and, how they're part of the community, how it benefits them. The fact that someone takes out 5 minutes from their life to come up to you, climb that flight of stairs and put in that extra effort just to say a hi and how much this community means to them tells you have done something right?
Yeah. Okay. And then what's the most difficult part?
Oh, how much should I open my list now? I mean, there are a lot of things that are difficult about it. I think, obviously, earlier on, a big piece was like the funding side of things.
Right.
I think me not coming from a typical business background, I feel like I've always been someone who's thought about things only from an impact standpoint, which is great. But it does start affecting sustainability at some point because early on, every funding for Redefined was coming from my own pocket. Right? No sponsorships, nothing. And it's not like I'm like the CEO of Chipotle or something, like, making like, I don't know, $10 million a year or something, right? So that I was like, oh yeah, take money from me, right? It's all going to be fine. So I think that was one reality check. And that was very difficult initially. But I think now that's what we are piloting and pivoting as well. That's why to position ourselves more as a social enterprise where we do make money, right? We are being transparent that, we are going to make money. We are going to charge students memberships. We are going to get sponsors, partners, etc. But the difference is all the money goes back into the company to just fund all of these initiatives and causes that we have, right? So I think that's a big pivot we've made to cater to that challenge that we had. And I think the other piece, honestly, is like, because I work a full-time job,
Right.
like giving it time as much as I should. I think the fact we've been able to scale to this number, I think if I was full-time on it, it would be a lot more.
3 times.
Exactly. But I haven't got my PR yet. So for me, like I'm with Deloitte, to get that piece. Once that's
Okay,
there, hopefully I can go full-time on this. Otherwise, I would have gone full-time a while ago. But again, immigration status limitations. So I don't want to be dropped out of the country. So here for that. But until then, trying to make the best. And I think the last most challenging part is team. Being a non-tech founder, I think wanting to build eventually like a tech company where, you want to build a platform that revolutionizes how connection looks like for every immigrant across the world, right? I need someone like who knows AI, who knows all of that, and, who wants to treat it as their own company. So right now we're even looking for a founding CTO. Because me learning how to code right now is going to take me enough time until the world is again going to change. And then I'm going to find myself just catching up. So, yeah.
Okay. Really good. So I guess you mentioned looking for the tech founder
Yeah.
but I guess what is that longer term goal with Redefined? Like what do you see it as in terms of what do you see it becoming?
I see it becoming a go-to community and a platform, marketplace slashes between all of those for every immigrant across the world. So that means whether you're someone from India looking to come to Canada, whether you're someone from Nigeria looking to go to Mexico, right? Or someone from anywhere wanting to go anywhere, how can you come here to find the right people in each of those areas, who can guide you in the right direction, and mostly doing it for students, though, like people who are between 18 to 25, so that their goals are borderless, right?
Okay.
That's what I want. That you should start thinking first about what do I want to do in life, and to become that person, whatever you need to be doing, I want to make sure through our platform we can help you find people or the right organizations or the right services that can help you bridge the gap between where you are today with your potential to the kind of opportunities you want to be in, irrespective of your geography, your economic status, and all of that.
Interesting. Have you ever taken a personality test?
Me?
Or like a strength test or
No.
Oh no?
No, maybe I have, but I don't remember
Okay.
I don't remember the result. At Deloitte, we do have like their own specific personality test. Yeah.
Do you ever study psychology?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Like, is that one of the extra courses that you
So that was even when I was in my 10th, 11th, and 12th. Like psychology was one of my majors.
Oh,
Like my
okay.
I did IB, so it's kind of like it was my HL, higher level.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Just curious.
Why am I radiating a lot of psychology through me?
I think that there's like an understanding of human behavior that is required to do the work and have the passion around what you do. And I feel like that's coming across a lot, both from like an experience standpoint and a knowledge standpoint, but also from this like the passion of trying to understand, like you said, the student behavior, and you feel not responsible for helping, but you feel like you can kind of, I guess, switch the mindset a little bit and understand the mindset behind that. How can other students or young professionals turn their pain points into impact projects?
I think the first thing is it goes back to my framework. Everything I'm going to bring back to the framework.
Okay, give us the framework breakdown again.
Yes, I'm going to do that. It's called the PCB Framework, and it's basically purpose, credibility, visibility. So the purpose being about you have to be very clear on why you want to do what you want to do, right?
Okay.
So irrespective of the pain points and the experiences you have, the first question is, what do you want to do? And if you know what you want to do, and most people, they'll have 10 different things that they have in their mind that they would want to do based on either how career trends are changing, how the market is changing, what their friend tells them, what their relative tells them to
Right,
do,
yeah.
right? So beyond all of that, I always recommend sit in a room by yourself, put a scented candle, light music, whatever puts you in the vibe. And I think just ask yourself, what... and then ask yourself what you want to do, and just write it down on a piece of paper, whatever comes to mind. And obviously there's like another process to it as well that I'll explain later. That's a whole another story. But like once you identify, let's say 2 to 3 things, ask yourself, why do you want to do those 3 things, right? Or those 2 to 3 things. Is it because someone told you to do so? Is it because you feel that's what you're meant to be, right? And maybe you can't explain sometimes why you feel that's what you're meant to be, and that's okay, right? But whatever the rationale is, because most oftentimes the reason a lot of us think we want to do something is because someone has told us about it,
Right.
or we have heard someone else talk about how that's going to be the next big thing, and that's how we influence our subconscious to tell our conscious that that's what we want to do, but it may not be what we want to do, right?
Right.
So asking yourself the what and the why, and then once you know the why, great. Now go to the second thing, the credibility piece, right? Because if you want to build any pain point or anything into that impact project, you first got to build proof, right? Proof or evidence that you can do it. Because to build anything, you need confidence in yourself and your abilities. And confidence doesn't just come by waking up one day and feeling confident about yourself or shouting affirmations to yourself in the mirror. Confidence is built through proof. Proof that I am who I say I am. And that comes only when you do things you need to be doing in the future as well, and the kind of impact that you need to be creating. So build that proof and credibility first, so that when you even sit across a room with someone else, you now have enough to talk about to show why I deserve to be here compared to the other person or the other 10,000 people who are lined up for the same opportunity. Right? And that's what I was talking about a lot earlier. It comes down to the quality of each of those things as well. So while, yes, credibility, everyone will say, oh yeah, I'm building experience, which is also a great first start. But what kind of experience do you have? That's the number one. How relevant is it to what you're trying to get into? What's the quality of that experience? What was the level of impact you created? How big was the organization? Did you work in a team of 35 people and then create that impact? Or were you a people of like 2 teams? Or a part of like a 2-people team, and then you created that impact. All of that will dictate the level of skill set that you have and the level of capability you have to perform that particular task. And then the last thing comes down to is visibility. Do the right people who need to know who you are really know who you are? Right? Like if you're looking to get a job in an X company, does the recruiter of that company know you exist? Do they know the work you have put in to get where you want to be? And do they know what your passion is and why is that your passion? Right? Similarly, people who are currently in roles you want to be in, do they also know that you exist? Because if the right people don't know you exist and you have done the things you've done, there's no point, right? Because how will they validate that you deserve to be there if they don't know you even exist as a data point in the system, right? So I would say those 3 things is my usual answer to almost everything. And I kind of use it as like a framework for life in many ways, like anything you're trying to do. Like let's say even if for a personal relationship, you need those 3 things if you think about it, right? You need to know why you want to be with that person. You got to have credibility and proof, right? Like show them why you really want to be with them by doing certain actions that show them that you're actually invested in being with that person. Acts of gesture or whatever that is. Like for everyone it's different. And that person needs to know you exist, right? Visibility. So I feel like it's like I use it to apply to everything in life.
No, that's really good. That's a really good framework. I love that. Okay, Ritika, so moving on from the questions, but I need to get a couple hot takes from you. So tell me, favorite food?
Favorite food? Any specific cuisine, or it could be anything?
Anything.
Desserts. I'm a sucker for desserts.
Okay.
Yes.
Like what? Like cheesecake or?
No. Like more of the brownie with the ice cream on it kind of person.
The hot fudge brownie.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, cool. Favorite place to travel?
Favorite place to travel? I haven't been there, but I really want to go to South Korea.
Okay, why?
I don't know. I'm a fan of Korean TV shows. I think that's a fun fact no one
really?
knows about me.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Oh my God. Like I rarely watch television or Netflix as much. I'm not like a big movies person or whatever, but I binge watch Korean TV shows. Like, I do it once every few months, maybe, or whatever. But like, yeah, that's one thing I would binge watch. Like Korean TV shows and like everything about their skincare, their food,
Okay.
even the vegetarian matcha. Like all of that is very exciting because I
Right.
think it's very different from my own culture, and I think a lot more exciting than the North American culture.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Cool. Favorite app?
Favorite app. So I don't have that app, which honestly I should. It's the Runner app.
Is it the Nike one or Strava? Strata.
So it's similar to Strava, but it's
Okay.
called Runner.
Okay.
It's relatively new. I'm looking to actually get a sponsorship from them.
Okay.
But,
Shout them out then.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but I love it. Why I say this is because I got into running like about a year ago. And I've been doing like I did my first 10K recently at the Under Armour.
Congratulations. Oh, okay.
And
Yeah, I
then,
did that one again.
yeah.
Before. I think last year I did it.
Okay, I did
Yeah,
it this
Under
year,
Armour
and then
10K.
I'm prepping for the TCS marathon coming up in October. I'm doing the half marathon, not the full.
Okay. I'll see you there.
Oh, you're also?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I'm
And
doing
then,
the full.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I basically, I'm doing a lot of these things. And tomorrow, I literally just signed up yesterday for this. Tomorrow is something called the High Rocks Challenge that's happening
Okay, yeah,
through
yeah,
Good
yeah.
Life Fitness. It's happening at the Metro Convention Center.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I've signed up for that. I've never done it before. It sounds like something comparatively people come to.
Yeah,
So I
like
think I'm going to be
training for
killed.
months and months.
Exactly. And I just found out through the people who are coordinating it that there's going to be a scorecard and everyone can see what your score is compared to other people around you.
Right.
And I might be the only person who's just signed up for it on the whim of it, while others have been prepping for years. So you know what? We'll find out. But basically, I'm doing a lot of that. So I think I've started really like enjoying running as a way to just like go into a different dimension and you know just forget everything that I
love
do.
running, yeah. The
So
runner's
Runner
high.
is one app I want to start
Okay,
using to like
nice.
prep for marathons more effectively.
Are you on Nike? Nike app?
No.
Oh, no? Because
No.
Nike has a running app.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah,
didn't know
Nike
that.
running app. And then you could like add your friends. You could see how many kilometers they ran and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I might
Yeah.
do that. And after Runner, I would say LinkedIn. That's mine.
LinkedIn? Okay,
Yes.
cool. Recommended book.
Oh, what is the name of that book? I'm reading it right now. Is this book by Simon Sinek?
Start with why?
Not that one.
Leaders Eat Last.
No.
That's the only two I...
Oh my God, what was it about? Why am I forgetting? You know what? I'll
That's
recollect
okay,
it.
yeah. But Simon Sinek, though.
But Simon Sinek, yes.
Have you read the other
Why
one?
is-
Start with why. And
Start
the-
with why I've
yeah,
read.
yeah.
Incredible book.
Yeah,
I mean, that's where
that's
my
a game changer. The
yeah.
why, the why part.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what like inspired me to start thinking about the why more.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
it sounds like a very philosophical thing to do, but I think it's a non-negotiable, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like it's that simple concept. Like if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to even go there?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's like another, like, you know, when you even asked about the challenge, I feel like that's another challenge that keeps coming up to me. I don't know if other founders or even you feel the same about it sometimes. Is like, I'll constantly come back to a point where I'm like, okay, why am I doing all of this?
Yeah.
Or like,
yeah.
you know, like things become foggy suddenly, like in the middle. And then you again want clarity. Like at least me as a person, if I don't have clarity on where I'm headed and why, I get frustrated and, you know, like I start getting lazy or I start getting distracted more. But if I know where I'm headed, I'm like a bull. Like, you know, I'll just go there. So I've struggled with that quite a few times, that in my journey,
Interesting.
suddenly there'll be that moment that things get foggy. And I don't know why that happens. But suddenly it'll be like, why am I doing this? What
Right,
was the main
right.
reason, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Has it happened to you? As like
It
that?
has, yeah. And I think like as you're talking, I think like the why is always there. And a lot of times as you're trying to figure out the direction and the solution, you end up going further away from the why, like trying different things,
Yeah.
kind of pivoting a little bit. But what I found, it is always leads back to the same
Why?
Like when like you said, when I sit back and I go, okay, why did I take that meeting? Or I
Yeah.
didn't really want that. It's like, okay, now I'm back to where I was in the beginning, which is why I do what I do and who I do it for,
Yeah.
you know? So I find like I always come back to my why when I'm getting outside of my character or going further away from the original purpose of what I was trying to create,
Oh. Okay. Interesting.
you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, maybe that's a part 2 conversation around
Yeah.
like the journey of building a community and all of that.
100%. I think that'd be pretty exciting for a lot of like entrepreneurs out there, because I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of like, I think entrepreneurs like don't off, or maybe they do actually now, but I feel like oftentimes it's only the success stories we hear a lot about,
Right,
right?
right,
I think
right.
very rarely are on a group of entrepreneurs coming together and just like having that conversation around what is like building behind the scenes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are you feeling on those days and moments? Because I feel like it's like you are struggling every day as an entrepreneur in
Yeah,
a way,
yeah, yeah.
right? Because every day is about, okay, like there's so much you could have done better, right?
Yeah, and I think like the concept is you know where you want to go, but you don't know how to get there. So you don't necessarily have a map or directions or a path that's cleared for you.
Yeah.
But you know at the end of, like how you said, you want redefined to be the go-to for, any type of
Yeah.
immigrant across the world, different scenarios. It's like, that's what you want. You're not sure how you're going to get there. You're not sure how you're going to fund it, how you're going to like make it all happen, but you're going to that destination no matter what. So it's almost like if you're traveling, right? You don't know what you're going to have to go through, water, hills, animals, whatever, to get to that final spot, but you're determined, I'm going to go through whatever I have to go through to get
Yeah.
there.
But you know what's interesting? I sometimes think of it as the opposite way around.
Okay.
I feel my challenges, I don't know where I'm going actually. Because like even when I define what I see redefined becoming, right?
Yeah.
It's very vague if you actually think about it.
Okay.
Right? Like if I'm being honest with myself and when I think about sometimes when I say it, like it is there, but I feel like it's vague. Like I'm someone like, if I knew exactly what I'm doing, I don't know, like I just operate at a different speed altogether. Like I think for me, the last 6 months has been that moment where I think I'm still trying to define what is it exactly that I'm after. And like as specifically as I can, right? Because I know the vague idea of where I see myself sitting, where I see redefined being at, right? What level it will be at. But I don't know what it is exactly, right?
Right.
Because I feel like if you know that as a founder, I think figuring out the how is a lot easier, actually.
That's interesting. I feel like I agree with you a little bit.
So you would say you know exactly your why, like what?
Okay, so I wouldn't say I know exactly the why and the what in terms of like the longer term purpose, but in my mind, I've let go of that, and I know that it's more about creating an environment versus creating a specific, I guess, direction or end goal. So it's like you can put people, like when you're building a community, you can put people in a room and that environment's going to dictate their progression versus having a blueprint for them to try to follow. Does that make sense? So so that's the way I see it. Like I've let go of, like I understand like the future state of where I want the tech effect to be and the community I want it to be, but I've let go of the control of like directing it. I just feel like, okay, if I put the right people in the right environment together, they'll co-create that experience bigger and better than I could ever imagine. And now that I say that, I feel like maybe that's the feeling that you're getting, where what you envision it as and the reason you walked away from that massive opportunity, you're not sure what it's going to become, but you know that if you continue to create that space, then the community will take it way further than you even thought it could be.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Like even I don't know what it could
Yeah,
become.
yeah, exactly.
Right? But I know it will become something.
Well, this is where I think like when you look back to all that you have accomplished, you're almost, it's like that concept of where you're living in you're living in the dreams that you had before, right? Like this moment was at one point you were like, man, I wish I had
Correct.
career.
Yeah.
I wish I was an influencer. I wish I
Yeah.
was speaking or whatever. So now that you're in that moment, it's hard for you to see even further because you're like in it now. You're even further than you thought you would be.
Oh my
You
God,
know what I
Kareem.
mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yes. Yeah, that might be true. And I was actually having this conversation recently with one of my best friends also. Because, like, see, this is what I say, like, these conversations are like with yourself also are so important,
Right,
right?
right,
Because
right.
it dictates everything. And I feel like I was at a point where I was feeling like even like lost in a way of, where I'm headed. And I think a big part of what my friend also mentioned was kind of similar, where it was like maybe what you dreamed of at that point, you are there right now, and you did not dream of bigger than that,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it feels confusing or
Yeah,
it
yeah,
feels
yeah,
lost.
yeah.
So maybe I just need to sit down with a pen and a book again and draft a really
Get
big
the
dream.
scented candles ready.
Exactly.
But what I was gonna say too is that's why it's also so important to have the peer mentors, the
Yeah,
community,
correct.
right? Because when I've had moments where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that, or what's the point? It's not gonna work out. It's like those are the people who are gonna remind you and be like, no, Kareem, remember, this is the impact you've had. This is why you started. And I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about
Yeah.
all of that, And then again, going back to the why.
Yeah.
So last question, word of advice to your younger self or to somebody like just starting out.
I would say get clear on what you want to do and why.
Okay.
Most important. I think just start there. Basic, but most important. It takes people a while to figure that out. It takes some people weeks, some months, some even years, right? Finding who they want to be. And I've met so many people today, who are in jobs, who have even started things, but still don't know
Right.
where they're headed and why. And I think that is a piece of frustration I see that also ends up holding those people back from truly being able to live up to the potential that they're capable of living up to. Right? So I think you knowing what you want and why is one of the most important pieces to allow you to be able to reach the potential which you can operate at, which a lot of us cannot even fathom at this moment. Because
Right.
most of us haven't even reached that clarity of knowing our why. People who have, I think, insane clarity on where they're headed and why they're headed there, you can just notice it
Yeah. Yeah.
in conversations. Everything will just head there, right? You can notice it in conversations, every action that they take. It's like as if so well placed one after the other. It's because it's just so clear exactly what they see it becoming, right? And in that case, for them, maybe the challenge more so might become is the how, to your point alluding
right.
earlier. But I think you can just know it. And I think when you know that, you know what's the potential you need to operate to. Because there was this phrase I came across recently where someone said, and I was going to make a post about it, where it said that you doing your best is not good enough. You need to do what it takes. But for
Okay.
you to know what it takes, you need to know where you're going. Right?
Right. Right. Right.
Because if that goal is at a certain place, then oh my God, I need to do these like 65 things to get there,
Right,
or I
yeah,
need to
yeah.
operate at X level every single day. But if you don't know where that is, you might give it your best, and your best is very subjective. Because that day you may not be feeling your best. That day maybe your mood is off. That day you're feeling lazy. So your best at that point could be maybe just working for 2 hours, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Versus the amount you might have to put in, right? So that's just one example I'm giving. Hours doesn't have to be the metric, but just as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Ritika, thank you so much. Yes. Oh my gosh, I feel like we need a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4. Not gonna lie. But why don't you tell people where to find you?
Yeah.
How to connect with you, how to join your amazing community. Yeah, just tell people.
Yeah, I think the main place you guys can find us is on my LinkedIn, which is Ritika Saraswat, or even follow me on Instagram, which is Saraswat Ritika, the opposite way around. And if you want to learn more about Redefine and our community, our website is re-define.community itself. And you should be able to join our memberships, which we have the waitlist on right now. And we have our event coming up as well in September. Okay. On September 20th, it's called the Newcomers Collision. It's like a full-day conference for all immigrants and newcomers wanting to set up success in their lives and in their careers. So, Kareem, open invitation to you and Tech Effect as well to come out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming by. It was a pleasure speaking with you and learning from you. And there you have it. Another action-packed, knowledge-packed episode of the Career Currency Podcast. Ritika Saraswat, redefined community, TED Talk speaker, community builder, and probably one of my favorite parts, fellow runner. But yeah, just taking the knowledge, the information. Don't forget the framework, purpose, credibility, visibility.
You got it.
That framework is going to help you in a lot of situations. Know your value, take those risks, and go for it. Again, thank you for coming through. Another episode of the Career Currency Podcast. Tap in with the Tech Effect. Follow us, like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.
You're tuned in to Career Currency with Kareem Perez, a podcast for people who are interested in unlocking their potential and increasing their professional value. Here's your host, Kareem Perez.